With the T.I. situation, if he did that, you're a fucking rat too. I don't spare no motherfucking body.
A full-blown feud has erupted in the South after Boosie Badazz publicly accused T.I. of being a snitch, and now T.I. has fired back with a heated message that's got the entire hip-hop world watching. It all started during an explosive podcast appearance where Boosie claimed he lost respect for T.I. after old audio resurfaced of Tip, admitting he once mentioned his deceased cousin's name in a gun case. Boosie didn't hold back, saying, "That's rat behavior. I can't rock with that." The internet lit up immediately, but I wasn't about to let that slide. In a fiery Instagram response, Tip clapped back, "You got my number. If you had a problem, you should have hit me like a man, not run your mouth for clicks." He went on to call the accusation reckless, saying Boosie was chasing headlines instead of facts.
And so we caught no gun case, took that, and my lawyer said, well, I can make everything go away if it was Tramel's.
Snitch? Never that. Ask anybody who's really been outside. T.I. also dropped a photo of court paperwork, daring Boosie and critics to show any proof of actual cooperation. He ended his message with one line that set social media on fire: "My record clean." Can you say the same? With the beef now boiling over, fans are picking sides, and the Southern unity once shared between the two seems shattered. Whether this explodes into a full-blown war or gets squashed behind closed doors remains to be seen, but one thing's certain, this just got personal. Just days ago, a collaboration album between Boosie Badazz and T.I. was abruptly shelved after Boosie accused T.I. of being a snitch. The fallout was swift and public, catching many fans by surprise. T.I., initially silent on the issue, has now broken that silence with a pointed response aimed directly at Boosie. He took to Instagram to issue a lengthy statement addressing the accusations and setting the record straight about his position. Some fans questioned Boosie's extreme reaction, struggling to see why the Snitch label triggered such a dramatic fallout. Others stood by him, supporting the code he claims to live by. For Boosie, loyalty and street ethics appeared to outweigh even years of friendship.
Collectively unified.
Black power.
Black power.
You only to get lost, man.
You hear me?
Yeah.
And there's a line being drawn in the...
I used his platform to not only respond to Boosie, but also to reflect on the public nature of their disagreement. According to T.I., his initial silence was not an admission of guilt, but a calculated decision while he considered his next move carefully. Now, the tension is on full display as both artists make their positions known. Surprisingly, this rift between two influential Southern rappers who, just months ago, appeared to be close allies, has sparked a larger conversation about street credibility, integrity, and whether or not those values still hold weight in today's hip-hop industry. The entire collaboration between T.I. and Boosie Badazz seemed rooted in unity, sparked after Charleston White targeted both rappers by attacking their sons and accusing them of being poor fathers. Though nothing ever escalated from Charleston's provocations beyond verbal threats, the ordeal brought the two Southern icons closer together. The shared frustration led them to the studio, with Boosie announcing plans for a joint album in interviews and T.I. frequently going live on Instagram to show off their creative chemistry. Fans were genuinely excited, expecting classic Southern rap energy with an edge sharpened by mutual respect and shared experience. However, last week everything changed. A previously buried episode of T.I.'s Expeditiously podcast suddenly resurfaced online, sending shockwaves across social media and altering the course of their collaboration and their friendship.
With the T.I. situation, if he did that, you're a fucking rat too. I don't spare no motherfucking body. Because if you doing anything wrong, you doing anything criminal-wise, and you cooperate with law enforcement to get you out of trouble, that means you're cooperating, that means you're a rat.
In this episode, T.I. recalled a story from his teenage years, painting a vivid picture of his younger days. Back when he was 17 or 18, T.I. and his cousin were caught by police while reselling branded clothing, and a firearm was discovered in their car. That incident led to several charges being filed against them both, but before the case could proceed to trial, T.Y.'s cousin tragically passed away. T.I. then explained that his legal team advised him to place the blame for the gun on his deceased cousin in order to escape prosecution, and that's exactly what he did, using the moment in court to clear his name. The charges were dismissed and he walked free. What T.I. considered a clever legal maneuver was interpreted by Boosie and many others as something much worse. The resurfacing of that podcast episode lit a fuse, transforming anticipation for their album into tension and disappointment. What began as a casual story from T.I.'s past would unexpectedly ignite one of the most significant rifts in Southern hip-hop this year. His recounting of a decades-old legal loophole ended up costing him far more than anyone anticipated. Not just a collaboration album, but a long-standing friendship built on mutual respect and shared history. When Boosie Badass caught wind of the resurfaced podcast clip, the reaction was swift and absolute. The details of the story, T.I. allegedly placing blame for a firearm on his deceased cousin to avoid jail time, clashed directly with one of Boosie's most deeply held principles: zero tolerance for snitching under any circumstance.
They just look at it because they make so many transactions with the type of business that they do, and they just like, okay, cool. And we go right outside, roll that shit into your hands, get the cash, and go.
For those familiar with Boosie, this response wasn't surprising. He's never wavered on his stance. Boosie's image and reputation have always been rooted in a rigid street code. Even when facing death row himself, he maintained his silence. That kind of unwavering discipline built his credibility, and it's why so many people listen when he speaks on topics like this. This wasn't the first time Boosie confronted someone for allegedly doing the same thing. He previously called out Terrence Gangsta Williams for using a deceased associate to escape conviction on gun charges. That incident set a precedent, and so when the T.I. clip surfaced, many fans knew what was coming. Boosie didn't hesitate. He labeled T.I. a rat and made it clear there was no room for compromise. In his view, snitching is snitching, dead or alive, and there was no excuse. That statement alone sent a shockwave across hip-hop circles, especially since the two had only recently been hyping their joint project. Boosie wasted no time pulling the plug on their collaboration. In his eyes, releasing music with someone now associated with snitching would violate the very code he stood by his entire life. The message was direct and unapologetic. Boosie doesn't work with rats, no exceptions, as one fan put it. Boosie, one of the few people I can trust when it comes to speaking against rats. And that sentiment was echoed by many who see Boosie as the last of a dying breed. Boosie's decision to sever ties with T.I. didn't go unnoticed, and it didn't go unanswered. While T.I. had remained relatively quiet following the fallout, that silence finally broke. In a sharp and calculated move, Tip clapped back with a response that reignited the fire and shifted the narrative once again. Referencing an interview Boosie gave to DJ Vlad, an appearance that had already stirred conversations, T.I. reposted the clip and attached a caption that was as clear as it was confrontational. In it, he addressed Boosie directly, challenging the way things were handled and drawing attention to a fundamental code in both street and industry culture. When in doubt, show the paperwork. T.I. made it known that he was ready to defend his name. In his post, he offered to show the documents proving the facts of the case and questioned why Boosie never approached him privately to discuss the matter before going public. This wasn't just about an album anymore, it had become a personal indictment of integrity, with both men standing firm on what they believe defines loyalty. For T.I., the key point was transparency. If Boosie was going to label him a snitch based on an old story, he needed to at least review the full context, including the paperwork. But that wasn't all. Tip hinted that Boosie's judgment may not have been his alone, suggesting others in Boosie's circle may have helped push the narrative. The post didn't just stir drama, it divided fans once again. Some felt Boosie's reaction was justified based on principle, but others argued that if paperwork really clears T.I., then Boosie jumped the gun. One fan commented, If Boosie didn't even look at the paperwork, then what's the point of a code if you don't use it to confirm the truth? Another fan added, "It's one thing to stand on your morals. It's another to rush to judgment without the facts. That ain't solid." Others, however, continued backing Boosie. "He's consistent. That's why people love him. If he even thinks you bent the code, it's over." But now, with T.I. openly challenging Boosie to confront the facts, the ball is back in Boosie's court. And as both men hold their ground, the fallout from a single podcast clip has now evolved into a broader discussion about loyalty, perception, and the ever blurry lines between street credibility and legal survival. T.I.'s public reply to Boosie was more than a defense. It was a direct challenge. It wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about calling out how quickly Boosie distanced himself without verifying the facts. Tip made it clear. If there was confusion about his actions, all Boosie had to do was pick up the phone. According to T.I., that's what solid men do when the bond they've built is on the line. But within that passionate message, one line caught everyone's attention: the mention of an OG uncle. This figure, unnamed but clearly influential, was allegedly the person who reached out to Boosie after hearing about the old podcast clip. According to the rumors, this 60-something-year-old mentor told Boosie flat out, "Don't release that album. Not with Tip. Not with someone who broke the code." Now, whether or not this uncle exists in the way it's being described, one thing is certain: Boosie doesn't move without principle. Fans familiar with his past know he's built a reputation for loyalty to street ethics and speaking without a filter. If someone with credibility in his circle reached out, it's possible that was all the confirmation he needed. And if that's the case, Boosie cutting ties may have come less from personal betrayal and more from external pressure. Still, Tip's reply showed how personally he took the situation. He emphasized leadership, self-knowledge, and transparency. His words, "The tail shall never wag the dog," highlighted a belief that true leaders don't react to hearsay or public opinion. They stand on verified truth. In his eyes, Boosie didn't lead in this moment. He followed a whisper. I expected more. The tone of his message reveals someone who felt a genuine friendship had been traded for clout or clicks. That hurt, especially considering the history they shared and the collaboration that had already been recorded. As Tip put it, obviously I thought we was something we wasn't. And that's where this feud takes a different turn. It's no longer just about street codes and snitching allegations. It's about broken expectations, trust lost in public, and the blurred line between loyalty and image. The fans may never know exactly who that OG uncle was or what was said during that phone call. But the impact of that single conversation has echoed far beyond the booth and left two veterans of Southern hip-hop on opposite sides of the line. As the dust settles between T.I. and Boosie, it's clear this fallout is bigger than just a disagreement between two artists. What we're witnessing is a fracture in Southern hip-hop, a break in a bond that once symbolized unity, growth, and mutual respect. The album they created together was supposed to be more than just music. It was meant to be a statement, a symbol of maturity in rap, where two veterans could come together and build despite differences in background, reputation, and even style. Now, that moment is gone. The unreleased project is frozen, collecting dust, while fans argue over codes, loyalty, and principle. And with every repost, every headline, the conversation shifts further away from the music and more toward moral policing, who's solid, who's not, and who gets to make that call. The saddest part? This wasn't just about T.I. and Boosie. Younger artists were watching. This collaboration had the potential to set an example for Southern unity at a time when regional loyalty in rap is weaker than ever. Instead, it became a cautionary tale of how quickly decades of credibility can unravel when personal codes clash in public. But beyond the headlines and drama, there's an even bigger loss. The fans never got to hear the music. A full joint album, recorded and ready, will now live in speculation. Bars that may have spoken on growth, resilience, and brotherhood will never get the chance to reach ears. For Boosie, the code is non-negotiable. For T.I., the way the fallout was handled is what stings. And for hip-hop, this entire feud is a reminder that in this culture, honor isn't just spoken, it's enforced. But when principles and pride collide, everyone loses something. Whether or not reconciliation ever happens, one thing is clear: the damage has been done. Two Southern legends divided by a decades-old story, a viral clip, and the silence that followed. At the heart of this story isn't just paperwork or interviews, it's trust, disappointment, and what happens when loyalty is tested in the public eye. While the paperwork might prove that T.I. never cooperated or snitched, that's not the core issue here. What really stings is the collapse of a friendship that many believed was unshakable. T.I.'s frustration wasn't just about being labeled a rat. It was about how quickly someone he considered a friend turned his back without asking a single question. His message made it clear: if Boosie had just picked up the phone, the truth could have come out quietly, without the drama. But instead, it played out online, loud and damaging. T.I. now has to deal with more than just his reputation. He's grappling with the pain of realizing that what he thought was real friendship might have been one-sided. That's often harder to accept than any accusation. And then there's the Vlad factor. As some fans pointed out, Vlad TV has a long history of pulling controversy out of artists during interviews. While Vlad doesn't force anyone to speak, his style has undeniably stirred tensions in hip-hop more than once. In this case, it might have amplified a misunderstanding into a full-blown feud. At the end of the day, this situation isn't just about T.I. or Boosie, it's about what happens when public perception outweighs private conversation. And whether or not they ever repair their relationship, this moment is already a cautionary tale for artists navigating loyalty in the spotlight. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Should Boosie have handled things differently? Should T.I. have reached out sooner? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more stories just like this. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep it locked